Well, hey there. Welcome back to Factorio Space Age. I'm Joe Mama, your host, and I'm here on Novice again. So another lesson learned. We sent the Axiom out again toward the Shattered Planet, and once again, we had to turn around. Only this time, it wasn't really out of desperation, or it just absolutely had to turn back. It was really out of an abundance of caution. Well, as it turns out, let's see, we set up our foundries and we set up massive amounts of storage of iron ore, and we set up all kinds of things that were going to help us. And oh, by the way, the lasers worked fantastic. I will tell you that. I can report back. The lasers worked great. I should say the lasers worked great when used in conjunction with all of the other weapons in a proper fire discipline. So again, I had the railguns shooting at the huges and the bigs, and they were ignoring all other targets, so that helped conserve ammunition for the railguns. Then I had the rockets. I had rocket launchers back here taking out the bigs, and they were restricted to those targets, so that was good. That helped. So the railguns and the rockets helped take out the big asteroids, and the railguns alone took out the huge. Now the mediums, I left to the guns. Okay, the guns took out the huges, or the mediums, and these are the normal Gatling guns. Took out the mediums. And the lasers, I allowed them to engage the mediums and the smalls. Okay, they did shoot at the mediums, which helped. It was difficult for the lasers to inflict a lot of damage because of the resistance of the mediums to laser fire, but it did weaken them. So the guns only had to fire 1 or 2 rounds apiece at each of the mediums to break them up, and then once they were broken up, the lasers absolutely wrecked all the little ones. So that worked great. The fire discipline and everything, all that worked great. And these things were busy as hell picking up pieces, and I kind of restricted them to each only picking up 2 kinds of asteroids instead of 3. And none of them, of course, were picking up the Promethium asteroids, because the Promethium asteroids really are just ammunition sponges. That's the only thing they are. You have to shoot them out of the way so they don't destroy your ship, and they are very resistant to your fire, but they don't do you any good. If you're not making science, which this ship, there's nothing science-y about it. Its job is to make it to the Shattered Planet. No science needed, so no Promethium needed. Now that again, it absorbed a whole bunch of ammunition, but we were able to sort of stay on top of it pretty well. Where we started running into problems was that we found another couple bottlenecks, and I'll explain. I had no issues for our smelters turning iron ore into molten ore, into molten iron. Wasn't really a problem. It seemed to keep up. I mean, there were times where we were getting so much iron thrown at us that we weren't able to keep up. I mean, so let's see. If we look at this amount right here, the max amount in the tanks at the time was 6.2 million, and occasionally it would drop down to 6.0, and that was usually because of, I'm trying to remember what specifically it was. There were a couple of little things that would happen, like these would get plugged up. Like, I found there's a bottleneck here. When you have these legendary asteroid grabbers, and even the epic asteroid grabbers, they grab a lot of stuff. They have a lot of storage, but they do grab a lot of asteroids, and it's difficult to get them out of the grabber quickly enough to keep the grabber free to grab more stuff. So that was actually a little bit of an issue, but we got it. I mean, we're dealing with it. I did my best to sort of increase the throughput by putting stack inserters and just multiple inserters on these front asteroid grabbers to just get them empty as quickly as possible so that they can keep grabbing more of the important stuff. But the reality was, I wasn't having trouble keeping iron on this belt. Iron was on this belt. It was pretty good. And it was, and even the iron ore, for the most part, was pretty much plugged. These belts were plugged with iron ore, so I was getting the iron ore to the smelters, but the smelters were having a little bit of trouble keeping up during the really busy times, and this started to drop. Like I said, it went from 6.2, which was max, down to about 6.0, and my solution to that was slow down the ship, which, using the trolling motor, I just set the speed. I started incrementally dropping the speed, and then everything started to keep up. That was the solution to a lot, is just drop the speed. You know, if it started to get overwhelmed, drop the speed, and then these machines would process everything. It took a little bit of time, but it did it. So I wasn't too concerned, but again, just as a reminder, if we go to the Factoriopedia and we take a look at, let's see, space, and we look at the space route from the Shattered Planet, we made it to about 2.0, but a little bit shy of 2 million kilometers. And look at where we're at. When you're at 2 million kilometers, you're dealing with mostly Prometheum asteroids, your ammunition sponges. You're mostly dealing with that. And the stuff you really want is here, these huge metallic asteroids, or the oxide asteroids to keep your fuel and your water, and the carbonic asteroids help you produce explosives. So you're wasting a lot of your ammunition on stuff you don't need to. Anyway, it just keeps going up and up and up, and I'm thinking, you know what, how am I going to keep up? So, oops, hang on. So I started, where are we at? Axiom? I started throwing down beacons. I carried some beacons with me. I started throwing some down here and there. It helped. But what I started to find out was, and I mean, I knew this already, but when you throw a beacon down, and by the way, the beacons were loaded with, ooh, what's going on there? The beacons were loaded with, oh, these are not fully loaded, are they? Oh, well, I'm going to go ahead and do that now. When the beacons are loaded with speed modules, in this case, speed 3s, there's a bit of a trade-off. The trade-off is you lose quality, which we're not too concerned of, but you also suck down like almost exponentially higher amounts of power. And that was starting to become a problem. Because if I go to, which by the way, thanks again for this little bit of information. Thanks is this little show electric current network button on the space platform hub menu. Click on that. The amount of power I had, it was about 600 megawatts. I was rocking 6 fusion reactors and therefore 12 fusion generators. I had 12 fusion generators, and with the lasers working as quickly as they were, even with 2.6 gigajoules worth of electrical storage, I was maxing out the power. And I was starting to bottom out and realizing that I'm not keeping up. Now, again, the solution to that is, again, slow down, because your weapons aren't having to engage as many targets per second as they would at a higher speed. So that was slowing me down. And finally, I was just realizing I was going so slow that, and I had so much more to go. Again, I was, this is what I was dealing with. Let's see, where are we at? Why have we got the train overview? No, turn that off. Right. Because I was only here, and I had, and that's, let's see, 408 huge Prometheum asteroids per minute is, okay, there's a 408, no, it's actually about 362 huge Prometheum asteroids per minute. That number was going to double. Okay, getting up toward, as I was getting closer at 3.9 million kilometers, that number would have doubled, and there's no way I could have sustained that. the power. And on top of that loss of power, I was coming up short on power, and then that was also starting to eat through the fusion power cells so fast that I'm thinking I may not have had enough. I wasn't sure. The math was telling me I was almost halfway there, and I had 2/3 of my fuel left. So math says, yeah, I should have been able to make it. But I think the rate of fuel consumption was slowly going up as the closer we were getting. So I thought we probably wouldn't have enough fuel. So while I still had enough fuel to go back, I turned around. So it was more of an abundance of caution. Like, I didn't have any direct evidence that was saying, Eric, you're not going to make it. It's not going to happen. It's so obvious because these numbers aren't matching. But I think if I sat and I crunched the numbers, it would have taken a little bit of calculus, but I think I could have done it. I think I would have found that I would have ended up short, and that would have been the evidence I needed that, hey, you're not going to make it, so don't even try. And you better turn around. This ship is your best chance to make it. Don't keep going past the point of not being able to turn around. So I, out of an abundance of caution, said, it's time to turn around. And I realized what changes needed to happen. So I went ahead and did some things to the ship. So I want to have the beacons, and I want to have the extra power to power the beacons. When I realized I was short on power, I actually started pulling up the beacons that I placed, a couple of them. And that gave me a little bit of extra room in the power, but it wasn't going to be enough, I realized. So I decided to increase to open a bottleneck. The bottleneck was I wasn't being able to process iron ore into steel and iron fast enough to keep up with the demand of the weapons. And explosives, I was fine. I did not have any issues with explosives. It was going just fine. But iron, of course, is always the great limiter. I was running short on rockets. Bullets, I think I was okay. Throughout the whole time, I was okay on bullets. But rockets were running short. So now, what I've done is I've added a whole bunch of speed modules. I even threw a beacon down in there to kind of get some speed from there. And also, I have... where is that going? What is that doing right there? Well, that's weird. Why does it seem like I'm missing something? Okay. Oh, so we gotta fix something. I think I did a thing. Both of these smelting arrangements, these iron plate foundries, are feeding this system. This was intended to feed it, but apparently I didn't complete this. I didn't complete this yet. Okay, Zol, I will put this like this. Okay, that attaches there. And then if I put this here... Okay, that will bring these two sources of iron together into one. I'm not sure why I did that. Okay, not sure why I omitted that. But it's connected now. So now we've got iron, extra sources of iron inject into this part of the supply line just before it goes into producing the rockets. Which, by the way, I did notice during the last excursion that I had not put any speed modules in these rockets. Again, I realized that this is going to increase the power draw immensely, but that's okay, and I'll explain why. So I've injected extra iron into that, and then I brought the iron up here, and I injected it as an extra source into feeding the iron supply for the bullets. So we should be good there. So for power, the other thing was I'm looking at what I carried for power, and I didn't have I had extra generators, extra fusion generators, but I didn't have any extra reactors. And I mean, the generators don't really do me much good without the reactors, because I was maxed out on the number of generators I could have given the 6 reactors I was carrying. Well, now I've got a grand total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, counting with Joe Mama, 10 fusion reactors and 20 fusion generators, and the appropriate the cryo plants to process the fluids. And I think we should be good there. I've got the appropriate fuel, and stopping at Aquilo, I picked up 3,000 fusion cells, and I'm actually thinking I'm going to bump that number up to 4,000. So prior to going out to the shattered planet next time around, let's see, what am I rocking right now? Is that, no, I think I'm still a little bit short on the fuel, but that's okay. I think a lot of those extra fuel that would bring it up to 3,000, because right now I think I'm at, let's take a look at about 2.8 axiom. Yeah, 2.8 exactly. So I think the other 200 have found their way down the supply line and into the reactors, so no big deal there. I'll go get some more. We'll top it off at 4,000, and hopefully that should be enough to provide extra power. I'm also, let's see, I gave myself a little more wiggle room in the area of the iron, but I don't think that's going to be a big deal. I think I can carry about 7.2 million fluid units of iron ore. And let's see, extra. Yeah, okay, so I've got extra iron ore, or molten iron production, and I've got extra iron plate and steel production. So I added a whole bunch of extra foundries there as well, and I added an extra iron processing section onto the ship. Okay, because we were during the transit, we were throwing away so much freaking iron ore that it wasn't funny. Copper ore, I was more than good, so I'm still okay throwing that stuff away. But I realized I needed to at least double the iron ore, the iron asteroid processing to turn it into iron ore. I needed that, so I bumped that up, and I ended up lengthening the ship, so it really is sort of becoming the Charleston Chew of love. Down here, I've got 7 engines. 6 of them are normal engines, and a 7th is our trolling motor. So if I were to fire it up right now, it would fire up all 7 until this one reached 50. Until the speed reached 50 kilometers per second, and then this engine would cut out. And that's the goal. So when I go to when I go to operate the ship in the transit again, to transit to the shattered planet. Okay, I'll disconnect that one right there when it comes time. I'll disconnect this elbow, and therefore disconnecting these 6 engines, and then I will completely control the speed through the asteroid with this trolling motor. And because you really have to go slow. Okay, I'd like to go a little bit faster than we've been going, but I mean, in some cases I was creeping at like 5 kilometers per second. And on the way back, as we discussed earlier, that was the other thing, because if I go too deep, and I'm like, the only way I can stay safe is to go at 2 kilometers per second, and I decide I need to turn around now. Remember what we talked about. The gravity will pull you toward the star, toward the sun, toward the center of the solar system at a speed of about 10 kilometers per second, even with no engines lit. So I had to turn around before I got to a point where traveling faster than 10 kilometers, or traveling 10 kilometers per second, was unsafe. Okay, hopefully that makes sense, because if it got to a point where I had to keep it below, 10, just to keep from being hit by asteroids because my weapons weren't fast enough, then it was too late for me to turn around, because turning around, the tailwind would blow me into the asteroids. And I say tailwind with air quotes. You know, I'm talking about gravity. Okay, so that pretty much concludes what we're doing with the ship. All I've got to do, and I'll do this off camera, is to kind of extend our asteroid grabby array down the sides, along with 1 or 2 extra rail guns. Also, this time around, I'm bringing a few more spares. So let's see, we're sitting at Novice. Let's go. I want to do a thing. How many extra? I think I got a couple of extra reactors here. All right. I'm going to send this up to the Axiom. We're going to send 2 extra reactors up, along with. Let's check the Axiom real quick. I think I've got. Okay, I got 2 generators. I'll add a few more so that I have power production capacity. I can increase it if I need to. I've got extra beacons, which are good. I've got spare guns. If I go down to the bottom here, I've got spare rail guns this time, which I didn't before. I've got spare lasers, spare cannons, because there was a point where I don't remember what happened, but this corner, for some reason, is vulnerable. If you look at this thing trying to punch its way through an asteroid field, you notice there's like a bubble around the ship, okay? That bubble is where there's no asteroids that are smaller than asteroid chunks. Does that make sense? There's a whole bunch of asteroid chunks, but outside the bubble, that's where you see the huge asteroids, the bigs, and the mediums. Because that bubble represents the minimum ranges of all the weapons. You know what I mean? Or that's not the minimum range, but it represents the distance where all kinds of weapons can be brought to bear. Okay? Like the lasers and the railguns can reach out a little farther, the rocket launcher can reach out a little farther, but the guns, I think, have the shortest range. Yeah, the gun turrets have the shortest range, but that is basically your last line. Your guns are taking out the medium targets, and the lasers, which have already had the small ones in range, can then engage the small asteroids. So really, right about there is this bubble. And right here, this is where the bubble is the closest to the ship. And that means if there's too much of a variation in your speed, something's going to punch through if your guns are overwhelmed. And I think that's what was happening, and it destroyed some of my equipment there. And I didn't have spare railguns. I actually pulled them from the back of the ship to put them up front. I don't want to have to do that. Yeah, so because of that, I sustained some damage. So hopefully this time around we can avoid it. Another thing was the way ammunition is transferred from gun to gun. I've got a system like that set up here where is it? Ammunition comes into this gun, it's transferred to this gun, and then transferred to, and daisy chained to this gun. Like these 3 are daisy chained together. I don't really care for that if I can avoid it. In fact, I'm kind of thinking maybe remove that and then do this. Like this. Okay, see, the supply of rounds, of railgun rounds, comes close to this gun, and only daisy chain it to one gun. Same here, the railgun rounds come to this gun, then daisy chain it one gun, rather than daisy chain it 2. I was getting notifications that one of these guns kept running out of ammunition, and I realized it wasn't that it didn't have access, it was just there was this period where this gun would call for ammo, and it would pull it from this gun, and this gun was temporarily without, and because this slow inserter was going slower than this inserter here, you know what I'm saying? So it left this gun temporarily without ammunition, so there's a good possibility that was the reason why this wing of the ship got destroyed. This one never did. Although, let's see, this one goes like that. Okay, we're gonna remove that. and set this up like that. And hopefully, since only one gun is daisy chained, that's only, there'll never be an ammo issue there. I hope. We'll see. So, okay, so that takes care of explaining the axiom, but I want to show you something else. We were working on another thing, as you recall, and we have 3 new ships. We have Huey, and you can see him right here. It's basically, these are asteroid harvesters. I've got Huey, Dewey, and I've got Louie. So my 3 robot companions, again, hopefully you understand the reference, and no, it's not DuckTales. My lone colonist here with my 3 robotic companions, and they are harvesting asteroids. And let's see, are any of them close to Novice? Dewey is close to Novice. So what this guy's doing, all of them are doing, is they're harvesting legendary ores and lots of legendary materials, and they're dropping them down. Like, okay, it's about to reach Novice. So if we go to Novice, let's see, can we see it come down? Probably not, probably gonna miss it. Okay, do we, yep, there they are, they're coming down. All the ores just got dropped. Okay, and then they're getting put on the belt. And all our legendary, do I have any lights whatsoever? Our legendary copper, our, there we go, and legendary iron are being processed. Legendary carbon, legendary sulfur are being processed into legendary coal, which are materials that we can use to make legendary plastic. But the iron and copper being produced to legendary plates are helping us produce legendary chips, which, by the way, I switched out our manufacturing for chips. I switched it out to, what are these things called? Electromagnetic plants, because they're a little bit faster. They have their own production speed. I don't know that they're faster, but they have a bonus production in them of 40%. And then I've added productivity modules so that now the total production on these bad boys is an 80% bump on each of these. So it's almost double. And even better, I switched out the the assembly machine 3 with an electromagnetic plant here for blue chip production. And because of the science that we've researched about increasing blue chip production, this one actually gives us a 100% bump. So we're getting blue chips made, legendary blue chips, at a pretty good pace, better than we were before. But the goal is to make quality 3 modules that are legendary in quality. That's the goal. I want to crank these bad boys out as best I can, but we're starting out kind of slow. But then I'm going to take these, put them up in the asteroid harvesters to increase their output, and then I can start putting them in other things as well. So as the production goes quicker and quicker and quicker, then we can put these in the things we really want to put them in, and we can start making lots of high quality stuff. But one of the problems I've been running into is I need to make legendary superconductors. So let's look at let's look at a superconductor. What's required to make it? Okay, required is light oil, so quality is not a big deal. Copper plates, we're getting those in legendary status. Legendary quality. Plastic bars, also with the legendary coal, we're getting legendary plastic bars. And then this little bitch, holmium plate. So you say to yourself, well, why don't we just get legendary holmium plate? Well, that's exactly what we need to do. However, easier said than done. Let's go back to where we were standing, and there's a reason I'm here, because I've got a single holmium plate legendary in my hand, and I'm about to pop it into this. Okay, so let's pop this bad boy in, and it's already working, and it made it There goes. Made the legendary superconductors. Well, why don't you just keep doing that, Eric? Sounds easy. Yeah, not so much. I'll show you. So let's go to Fulgora for a minute, where our electromagnetic, our holmium plates are made. And if you look, here's our holmium plates. How do you make them? You make holmium plates by processing holmium solution. Well, you can't feed holmium solution. You can't make it any quality other than common. You can't make varying qualities of holmium solution. It is what it is. So I have to basically set this up so that I put a whole bunch of quality modules in there, and I've set this arm here up, this inserter, to just grab any holmium plates that show up that are legendary status. Now, after about 60,000 productions of plates with 4 quality 3 modules in there of normal quality, I've only gotten about 6 of these plates in legendary quality, and that's just not good enough. So I have to find a way, and there are ways, but I'm trying a couple of different methods here. I'm basically producing plates until, like I said, I've produced 60-something thousand holmium plates with these modules in there, and only 6 of them. So what's that? About 1 in 10,000 plates that I make comes out legendary quality. So what I'm doing is the ones that are not legendary, I'm running them through recyclers with quality modules in them, in the hopes that they'll one day spit out a legendary plate, maybe at a higher rate. I don't know. I'm actually not even sure which is giving me most of my plates. I've gotten 6, but I'm thinking that they're all coming from this method, and that this method is not really viable, you know? But I don't know which has been which, because I put them into passive provider chests, and I've set up this requester chest, and it requests the holmium plates, the legendary plates, but I'm not sure where it's gotten them from, to be honest. Anyway, when one shows up, it plops it into this rocket, and this rocket catches one of our asteroid harvesters, and when our asteroid harvesters are in orbit over Fulgora, the rocket will launch and send it to these guys, and these guys will bring it and drop it off at Novice. So that's what's happening right now. It's a little bit crazy. This is a lot of experiments that I'm running right now, but I don't know, I'm learning a lot. Like I said, I think my next step will be to crawl along the sides of this ship here and place more lasers, place more asteroid grabbers, a couple of rail guns, and maybe a couple of rockets, just to sort of keep the asteroids at bay, you know? I think that'll be it. Though I'd like to see, let's fire this sucker up. I'm thinking I might want to send this to Aquilo and just get a taste for what it can do. See if there's any, I mean, if you hear my seat squeaking. If you hear that squeaking sound, yeah, that's my seat. Sorry about that. But let's do a thing here. Now, where are the rockets? Okay, so what I'm gonna do, we're gonna and I have leaned into the use of turbo belts big time. I use them all the damn time. Okay, is there no rocket launchers down here? Oh, yes there are. Okay. All right, let's see if we can get these. Okay, and I'm just going to set these rocket launchers up just for the time being... Okay, first of all, what have we got for rocket launchers? For quality. Because I need to know that before I start slamming them down. Do we have anything of any quality? We've got some uncommons. Alright, we'll do that. Alright. Well, let me take a look at something real quick. I haven't actually looked at this in a while. What are we producing down here? Ah, still just commons. Okay, or uncommons. So that's what we'll do. Go to the Axiom, and we're gonna drop... Where are we at? Right here. And we select common, or uncommon? Rocket launcher there. Okay, we're gonna put this right there. I'm not gonna give it any target restrictions. It can engage any damn thing. Okay. That's good. Okay. Basically, this is just a safety. This is just to cover our... literally cover our ass as we go through this dangerous area. So I'm gonna refine the defense on the rear quarters later, but this is just a stopgap measure. So, all right, yeah, that covers our ass basically. And oh, you know what we can do to cover the we can still do the lasers. We'll do that as well. What have I got for lasers? I think I've got some epics. Do I have some epic lasers? Yes, I do. 24 of them. Awesome. Okay, so we'll lay down 12 per side. Epic. I'll try to lay down 12 per side. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, well, that's good enough. Okay, there we go. That ought to cover us as we travel to Aquilo. So let's go ahead and set this thing to go to Aquilo, and we'll get an idea of how well they perform. Of how well it performs. I realize... that's like... I don't know, you build a ship to withstand the worst storms ever, and you bring it out... the worst storms ever out on the ocean, and you bring it to a lake and you test it in the rain. That's all I'm doing. Okay, how are these guys going? Okay, they're collecting lots of ore and calcite. They're collecting calcite as well. That's Dewey. About Huey? Okay, Huey's got some calcite, got some ore, got some carbon, sulfur, and Louis. Where's Louis at? Louis is... okay, he's on his way to Gleba. He's got some carbon, but not much else at the time. It's kind of interesting, because Huey was the big experiment. I was figuring out how to make one of these things, and it's a little bit clunky at 842 tons. Little bit of chunk. But then I went to Dewey, and I came out with a design that's a little more space efficient, and it is 778 tons. And then I rubber stamped it onto Louis, and somehow Louis ended up a little bit bigger. Some things got tweaked, but anyway, it's at 787 tons. It's like 10 more tons. So, so Dewey is the speed demon, but for some reason it always seems like Huey and Louis were the ones chasing each other around, and Louis would always overtake Huey. But anyway, that's not important at the moment. Okay, these guys are doing some stuff. That's good. I like to see that. What's it looking like for power? Okay. It gets crazy when you start getting when you start really crunching into asteroids, it really digs into them, and you're going to see that power production go way up. How fast are we going? 120? Okay. How about fuel? What's that doing to our fuel? I will have to keep an eye on that, because usually I run this thing with 3 engines, not 6. I'm also checking to see, to make sure, you know, all my belts are going where they want to go, that there's nothing that's getting stuck. You know what I mean? Because that happens. Okay. Make sure my pressure vents are working as they're supposed to, and when I say pressure vents, I'm talking about these. What do you call them? These splitters that are set up to prefer, or to favor one side. It'll push everything toward one side unless it gets full, and then it will spit it out to the other side. And I need to make sure that the main sushi belt doesn't get overloaded, because if it does, I think I've got up here is where I've got the sushi belt vented, so that if it gets overloaded, it throws stuff over the side, and that's what we want. A couple of different places, actually. Oh, we're killing it. We're getting to Aquilo pretty quick. Maybe we'll keep going toward the asteroid, or to the solar system edge, and we'll see what happens. I may actually need to kill the speed a little bit when we do that. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. I know this thing is now going to want to try to grab fuel. Alright, I'm actually going to bring the Mobius to Aquilo, and I'm going to bring the Odysseus to Aquilo. And the reason being is they're loaded with blue chips and low density structures. Both of them carry those by default, or when they run out they grab more. And that's the only way to get those supplies to Aquilo. And I've just parked the ship with the Axiom. I've parked the ship off of Aquilo, that's going to demand a whole lot of rocket launches to fill up the fuel. Like right now it's sitting at about 3,000. So what's that? 1,500. Okay, 3,000 fuel. And I've just requested another 1,000, so that's 20 rocket launches. And I'm not sure the supplies exist on Aquilo to launch that many rockets. I'm not certain. Oh, there's another gun though. I'm gonna deliver that. Deliver another rail gun up there. Yeah, use a rocket. After I talk about how I'm short on rockets, hey, let's send another rocket up to the Axiom. Okay, we're gonna send that up. And that, you know, gives us a little extra spare. How many do I have? How many did I say? I have 10 already. So I've got a bunch of railguns up already, but you know what? One's on the pad ready to go. Might as well send it up. Oh, and I still have a legendary accumulator that I haven't plopped down on the ship anywhere. Well, I'll fix that. So let's go to accumulator, pick a legendary, and let's go to the back of the ship here. Actually, let's go to the front, because there's legendary accumulators up there. So let's do that. Okay, put it there. Alright, and I'm going to plop down a couple more beacons to cover a few of the railgun round productions. Oh, what was that? Oh, that's the sound the beacon makes. Duh. I don't often play with the sound up. So that was a new one for me. Okay. So again, that's going to increase our power production, or increase our power demands, rather, but you know what? I'll take my chances. I want to throw an extra fusion reactor and a couple more fusion generators before we go on the trip. Alright. Okay, I realize there's probably rockets on the way. Let's take a look. Willow, no. Okay. Let's... we'll let that rocket arrive. Dang it. Actually, I think if the rocket's in flight... Sky, rocket's in flight. If it's in flight, it actually won't let us leave, even if we try to. So that's okay. We'll go ahead and tell it. We want to go to the solar system's edge. But we'll wait for the rocket to arrive. Well, the Mobius and the Odysseus are going to arrive at Aquilo soon, and when they do, we'll just have them reimburse Aquilo for the rocket supplies we've used. Also, we didn't get all of our fuel yet, so that will help us with that later. So I just want to see how this sucker performs during this trip. Okay. Oh. Okay, well there's an issue. Alright. Found one. Okay, that goes here. No. Alright, which way is it going to go? It's going to go this way. Okay. Put one here. Okay, there. Okay, so you know how the asteroid grinders, when they produce an asteroid, like they're supposed to produce byproducts, but when that byproduct is another asteroid, I had them. My goal was to set it up so that it drops that off, rather than plugging the sushi belt, the little mini sushi belt that goes around our grinders. I wanted to set it up so it pulls those extra asteroids away from the grinders so they don't block the inserters. Does that make sense? Because what would happen was this belt would get so full that the inserters couldn't drop their asteroids on the sushi belt, and therefore the grinders couldn't unload any byproducts and they wouldn't operate, so they would get stuck. So the sushi belt would be full, but none of the grinders could operate to empty the sushi belt. So the goal here is, if it rejects any asteroids, it's going to reject it right back onto the main sushi belt, so that the mini sushi belt stays available for processing. It's just a way to hurriedly just get them away, so they don't plug the belt anymore. And if they plug the main sushi belt, that's fine, because that belt, there's a pressure relief on that, so that shouldn't be an issue. Okay, but it looks like this seems to be doing what I want it to do, which is good. All these grinders grinding away. Excellent. See, it's all these kinds of bugs. When you take your ship out for its first flight, for its first voyage, you shake these bugs out. That's why they call it a shakedown. A shakedown cruise. This is a shakedown cruise. I think that's what the name is. Power's jumping. Okay, let's check the front. Yeah. Yeah, the one in the back is helping to relieve the pressure on the belt. Because a lot of times this would get so loaded with asteroids. But it seems to be working well. Water, we're never hurting for water. That usually goes pretty good. There was a couple of incidents where we were actually this belt was so full of stuff, of water, of extra water, extra ice cubes. Or I'm sorry, I say extra water, extra oxide asteroids that I had to remove some guns, or at least move them back, and add extra capacity to the trash belt, and it seems to be working. As long as it keeps these water machines going, they never get plugged, you know. And that's another thing. When you do this, you want to keep it so all your machines operate, so you have to set up some sort of relief valve, so that, and by a relief valve I mean these splitters that are set up, like here, where's an example of one? Right here. This is one where it has a priority output that will keep it on your sushi belt, that keeps feeding the stuff around to the grinders. The oxide asteroids keep going around to the grinders, but if it gets overwhelmed, that it spits it out onto the main sushi belt. Okay, that it gets it out of there. So or concepts like this, where's an example? Actually, it's really, there's an example down here. It should be easier to see. Okay, so the iron ore comes through here. Notice iron ore is now getting rejected because we're producing so much of it. What are these at? 6.6? So if your ores start to stack up, okay, especially these processes that have multiple byproducts, if it's a thing as old as hell in Factorio, a problem that if one of the byproducts starts to build up and backs up right to the machine, if you can't get that byproduct out of the machine, then the byproducts that you are using a lot of won't get produced. So you have to set up these, I call them relief valves. They're just splitters with an overflow, and set up the overflow on all of your outputs so that if there is, or put overflows on all of your outputs so that if they start to back up, they can be rejected right overboard. You know what I mean? Don't let them build up to the machine and stop the machine. So anytime I have a machine like this, there's a byproduct overflow on it. Make sure you put those in. You'll discover that long before you get to this point anyway, but you know, something to be aware of. Okay, so how much is in each tank? 24.8. Okay. So we got about 6.6 million fluid units. All right. Not too shabby. And we're going to make it to the solar system's edge in no time. By the way, this game, we're about 500 something hours into just this game. I know some people are like, well, I've reached 500 hours on Factorio. That's so awesome. I'm like, dude, you know nothing, Jon Snow. When you play this game, I mean, I'm somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 hours into the game, but it's just kind of crazy that almost 10% of those hours, well, yeah, about almost 10% of those hours are just this one game, because Factorio Space Age just adds so much awesomeness to the game. And I will go on record as saying I don't like Gleba, but I'm all for it being in the game. It's a challenge. When I say I don't like it, I don't mean I don't want it in the game. I just mean it's a challenge, and it's annoying. It is it will tax your abilities to play the game. It's frustrating, but there's no way in hell I would want to play the game without it, because it's a very awesome challenge. Okay, as a challenge, it is awesome. I mean, it's devious. So no, I know there are mods out there that can take Gleba completely out of the equation. You know, if you want to play the game that way, that's okay, but I myself could never do that. That's just, it's like, no, man, I gotta have Gleba. Gotta have it. Okay, I wanted to see how that was going to pan out, because that was like a big cluster of asteroids just getting close. I'm telling you, dude, when you watch this thing plow its way toward the shattered planet, it's scary. It is scary. It's like, man, all it takes is one little, one failure of the weapons and your ship is toast. Power outage or something like that, and your ship would be toast. So many systems got to work together. And amazingly, I'm very encouraged by the fact that amazingly this ship made it to 2 million kilometers. And I turned around when I did only because I didn't think it was going to be tenable. It was tenable at the moment. I didn't get turned around by force. I just realized that it was probably going to force me to turn around later, so I better do it now. Alright, well, we are just about to the edge. I'm gonna check Fulgora one more time. Nope, still waiting, because if there's a plate, if these legendary holmium plates start getting made, they're gonna end up in the rocket. And I don't think I've set up the launch to be automatic. Pretty sure it's not. Although I guess I could. No, I have to manually launch it. Let me clear that right away. I do have to manually launch it. Okay, we've reached solar system's edge. Alrighty then. Well, I think that's just gonna about do it for me. And it looks like this thing is really working out well. We ironed out a few bugs, but I think it's working out well. And hopefully I can throw an update and show you how things are going. It might only be a very quick update, but it might only be like a couple-minute video showing me in the middle of the asteroid field on the way to the shattered planet, but so be it. That's when we'll speak next. Alright? So until then, y'all have a wonderful day, and I will see you then. Ciao.